The Dell G3 is a gaming laptop in the lower end of Dell's G series, so let's see how hot it gets, find out if there's any throttling, and investigate what can be done to improve gaming performance. In my configuration here, I've got the Intel i7-8750H CPU with Nvidia 1060 Max-Q graphics, so fairly decent specs for a gaming laptop. It's also worth mentioning that I've got the 17-inch model here. In theory, temperatures may be a little warmer in the 15-inch version, as it's a bit smaller with less cooling room, but I don't have it for testing, so I can't say for sure. Also keep in mind that the G3 is also available with the i5-8300H CPU and 1050 or 1050 Ti graphics. I've got the highest spec G3 here, so in theory this should be worst case for it, as lower spec hardware will probably run cooler. Thermal testing was completed with an ambient room temperature of 18 degrees Celsius, so expect warmer temperatures in a warmer environment. I'll also note that it wasn't possible to manually modify the fan speed of the G3, so all temperatures were with the fans at default speeds. Starting at the bottom of the graph, at idle the CPU and GPU are running cool enough, shown in light blue. Moving up to the green bar, I've tested gaming using Watch Dogs 2, as it uses a good amount of CPU and GPU resources, and this rose the temperatures a fair bit. If we apply a minus 0.150 volt undervolt to the CPU, we're able to drop the temperature slightly, shown in yellow. The stress tests were done by running Ada64 and the Heaven benchmark at the same time, in order to attempt to fully utilize both the processor and graphics. Moving up in the graph to the red bar, there was power limit throttling present, fairly standard with the 8750H CPU under stress test. By applying the same minus 0.150 volt undervolt to the CPU in purple, the temperature actually rose slightly, but as we'll see in the next graph, it's now performing much better. These are the average clock speeds for the same temperature tests just shown. The green gaming and red stress test bars were subject to power limit throttling, which is why only a 3.4 GHz average was seen over all 6 CPU cores. But performance was improved with the minus 0.150 volt undervolt applied. In particular, the purple bar shows that we're very close to getting the full 3.9 GHz all-core turbo speed of the 8750H CPU. These are the clock speeds I got while just running CPU-only stress tests, without any GPU load. And power limit throttling was still taking place at stock, although there was no thermal throttling. With the minus 0.150 volt undervolt applied though, we're able to reach the full 3.9 GHz all-core turbo speed of the i7-8750H CPU. And I'll also note that it wasn't possible to change the power limit from the 45 watt TDP with Intel XDU. To demonstrate how this translates into performance, I've got some Cinebench CPU benchmarks here, with the older 7th gen 7700HQ just there for comparison. We're able to improve the score by over 100 points by applying the CPU undervolt, and no real difference between either in terms of single core performance, as single core alone isn't enough to trigger power limit throttling. Here are the GPU-only clock speeds while under a graphical-only stress test, both at stock and with a 200 MHz GPU core overclock applied. But it's worth noting that your CPU undervolting and GPU overclocking results will vary between chips based on the silicon lottery. So how does this performance boost actually translate in games? In the games tested, the exact same Windows updates, game updates, and Nvidia drivers were installed, so there shouldn't be any changes other than the CPU undervolting and graphics overclocking. The same minus 0.150 volt undervolt to the CPU was applied as before, along with the 200 MHz GPU core overclock and 400 MHz GPU memory overclock. CSGO was tested with Uletical benchmark, and with the changes in place, the 1% lows are slightly higher and average frame rates at max settings are about 7% better, but then no real changes at the other setting levels. Far Cry 5 was tested using the built-in benchmark, and again at ultra settings there was a similar 7% boost to the average frame rates in this game, with higher 1% lows all round. So we're seeing a little improvement with the CPU undervolting and GPU overclocking applied, although it will depend on the particular game in question and the setting levels in use. As for the external temperatures, where you'll actually be putting your hands, at idle the body of the laptop is peaking in the low 30s, quite cool. While gaming, the wrist rest was still cool, but the center of the keyboard starts approaching 50 degrees. And with the stress tests running, we saw a similar result. As for the fan noise produced by the laptop, I'll let you have a listen to some of these tests. At idle, it was almost silent, only just audible. While gaming, the fans pick up, but overall it's still a fair bit quieter compared to most other gaming laptops. Likely due to the Max-Q graphics, and then about the same results with the stress tests running. Overall, the performance was about what I expected of a laptop like this with the 8750H CPU. Just to be clear, the power limit throttling isn't an issue unique to the Dell G3. I've seen this in pretty much every i7 8750H laptop I've tested. But as covered here, there are steps we can take to mitigate this and improve performance, namely through undervolting. These differences in performance shown aren't hard and fast rules. There are different factors which will vary results, primarily the temperature you're running in, application of thermal paste, and even the specific hardware, which comes down to the silicon lottery. You may not be able to undervolt or overclock your hardware the same as me. It depends on the chip and its specific power requirements. So don't just blindly copy my settings and do some testing to find out where your stable point is for best results. While you could probably improve the temperatures by swapping out the thermal paste, that's not something I can test in a review unit. If I go ahead and remove the stock thermal paste and replace my own, I can't put the old paste back. So the next reviewer would experience something different from what you'd actually see with the product and unknowingly report incorrect information due to what I've done. Although, with that said, power limit throttling was more of an issue from my testing than heat anyway. But perhaps thermal throttling could become present in a warmer environment. Undervolting, on the other hand, isn't physically intrusive, and as we've seen, it did improve the performance and temperatures in this particular unit, with no downside once you've got a stable undervolt. It's a great way to get back some performance if you're running too hot or facing power limit throttling, like we were here. Let me know how much of a performance boost you've found by undervolting your hardware, and what you thought of the improvements here. And don't forget to subscribe for the full review of the Dell G3 gaming laptop, as well as future tech videos like this one.